Hi, and welcome back to the 5th video in the web programming lecture series. In our previous 2 videos, we were introduced to HTML and how to look at its fundamentals, some basic tags, and some core concepts of the language. Our web pages are looking quite bland at the moment, so let's give them some style. This is where CSS comes into the picture. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's what gives web pages their color and style. So let's take a look at how to use it. So a HTML web page is made up of a combination of tags. Each tag has its own unique set of properties, such as color, size, and width. CSS can alter the value of each property. And the most core thing to remember is every line of CSS is going to change a value of a property. So remember, property, value, semicolon. Property, value, semicolon. For example, if we wanted to change the font of a div tag to the color red, we would write color, red, semicolon. So let's take a look at this in action. If I go to my div and I write style equals color, red, semicolon, and I save and I go and refresh my page, we can see the web programming lecture series is now red. We can change the value of other properties by continuing this property, value, semicolon trend. For example, if we wanted to change this font size to 20, we go in here, we type font size, 20 pt, semicolon, and then we save that, refresh that, and we can see that web programming lecture series has gotten bigger. If we go to w3schools.com, we can see that there are many different types of CSS properties that we can edit and set the value of. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of CSS, it's important to know there are 3 different ways to apply CSS. The first one is inline, the second one is internal, and the third one is externally. We're going to take a look at how to do all 3 of these and how to apply it to our web pages. The method that we've been using at the moment is known as inline CSS. That's because we're styling each element in line with that specific tag. The style only gets applied to elements and content inside of that tag. So for example, if I put in a h1, hello, close it off, let's save and refresh it, we can see that that new tag is not red. However, if I come in and I cut this and I pop it inside of my div tag and I save and refresh it, that heading is now red as well. Inline CSS starts to become problematic when you want to style a collection of tags in the same way. For example, if I wanted to have every div tag have red font, then every time I put in a div tag, let's put in hi, save and refresh, you see that we would have to go and copy and paste this style, color, red, semicolon, save and refresh, and we'd have to do this for every single time we added in a div tag. You can quickly see that this would become tedious. This is where internal CSS can help us. What we do is we go up into our head, we type style, we close off our style, and now we can put all of our CSS inside of here. So let's get rid of all of our inline CSS. Let's save, go and refresh our web page, and we can see that it's gone back to default styling. So now what we can do is we can go up into our style tag, and what we want is we want every div tag, so we write div, we do open curly brace, I'm going to leave another line, close it off, and what we're going to do is put our color, red, semicolon here, and we're going to save and refresh. So now every time we want to add in a new div tag and we want its font to be red, we can just simply go div, new info, close the div, save and refresh, and you can now see that every time we add in this new div tag, its font automatically becomes red. This internal CSS is helpful as it allows us to style a group of tags in the same way. We could achieve this same look through using inline CSS, but it makes everything inside our body tag look cleaner, as it is now just HTML with no CSS. Internal CSS can also become problematic if we want to apply a certain style to a group of tags across multiple web pages. If I made a new HTML document and I wanted all of my div tags to also have red font, I would have to copy and paste this internal CSS to the head of each of the new HTML documents. So this is where the third type of CSS comes into play, external CSS. Let's firstly get rid of this internal style tag, save it and refresh it, and now let's have a look at external CSS. So now I've created this style.css. This is a new document and it's in the same folder as our original web page. In our style.css file, we're free to write our CSS as we would in our internal style tag. So we just write div color red semicolon, and then we can do close curly brackets, and we can save that. So now what we want to do is we want to tell our browser when it's reading our web page to go to style.css, extract that CSS, and apply it to the HTML content it's about to see in the body. So we need to relatively reference our style.css style sheet. So how we do that is we go into our head tag, we use a link tag, we write rel equals style sheet, so the browser knows it's about to get a style sheet. We write type equals text /CSS, so it knows it's going to get some CSS. And then we write href equals, and then we can relatively reference the style sheet, which is going to be style.css. We save this, and we go over and we refresh it, and we can see, as we had before, all of our div tags now have red font. So if we wanted to add some more CSS, so let's say font size is say 16 pt, and say we also want our body to have a, let's say background color is yellow, close that off, we'll save it. And now if we go and refresh it, we can see that we have slightly bigger text, it's still red, and the body now has a background color of yellow. But if we go back and have a look at our actual HTML document, you can see it hasn't changed at all because it's going and getting the CSS from style.css. This allows us to separate components really effectively, and it means our HTML document looks just as clean as it did before. You may have noticed that I've been referring to styling a certain group of tags or a certain collection of tags, when in fact we've just been styling every single div tag to have red font. There are actually multiple ways to style a collection of tags. We can do it by tag or element, such as making all div tags have red font. We can do it by class, by the ID of the tag, and then we're going to have a quick look at pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So we've already seen how to style a tag based on the name of the tag. So if we go back and let's say we'll make our h1 have a color of blue, and we'll save that and refresh it. So you can see now if we go back over here and we add in another h1, and I save that and refresh it, we can see that that also is blue. The main problem with this is sometimes we don't want all the tags to have the same color font or the same type of CSS. In this example, if we want every element that has either hello or hi to have blue font, we could go and style it inline for each tag. Another way of doing this is if we want them to all be common, is we could give them a class. So let's say class equals greeting. We'll go down here for hi and write class equals greeting. So now what we can do is we can come back over to our CSS, and the way we refer to a class is by writing dot followed by the class name. So here we now have greeting color blue. If we save that, go to our web page and refresh it, we can see that now everything that has the class greeting in it is now being changed to blue. Similarly, we could also now decide to change the font size to 24 pt, save it and refresh it, and now everything that has the class greeting in it will also have the font size of being 24 pt. Classes are beneficial as we can apply them to multiple tags, so for example here a h1 and a div tag, but it also means that if we have to go back and edit it, so say now we might want to go and change the color to green, we can go and refresh it. It means that if we have identified a common group, such as greeting, that we can go and change all of the formatting in one go. If we wanted to apply a certain type of style to one tag, we would historically go in and change it using Inline Css. But as we saw with hyperlinking, we can refer to one tag by giving it an ID. Let's say the ID is hello. Let's save and refresh that. So now if we want to give that tag a specific style, we can refer to it by its ID in CSS by using hash followed by its ID name. So here we have hello. So let's make its color red. Save. So you can see here we have ID equals hello, and in our CSS we go hash hello. So reapplying this, we can see that we have web programming lecture series is once again red. A quick trick with CSS is if we want to apply the same styling to multiple IDs, tags, and classes, we can comma separate the tags and then specify the CSS. For example, if we wanted any tag that was a h1 that had the ID hello or was of class greeting to have a yellow background, we could go h1, comma, hash hello, comma, dot greeting, open brackets, then we could go background, color yellow, and close it off. Now we save and refresh, and we can come back and see that anything that has the class greeting is a h1, has the ID hello, or also has the class greeting, now has a yellow background. Now let's get rid of all of that. We can also see that we can also apply two classes to the same tag. So here we have class equals greeting. If we just go space, we can specify another type of class. So let's go second, as we said in style here, and we'll refresh it. And you can see now that Hello World also has the font family of Arial. We can also get quite specific. So here you can see that we have two tags that have the class greeting. One's a h1 and the second one here is a div. So if we go back here and we say we only want to style div tags that have the class greeting, what we can go is go div.greeting, or if I can spell properly, and then we might go background color is yellow, close it off, save and refresh. So even though here we have two tags that have the class greeting, only the div with the class greeting has been given a background color that is yellow. The final thing we're going to look at in this video is pseudo classes and pseudo elements. A pseudo class gives a certain type of tag, ID, or class a different appearance when some sort of action is done to it. For example, if we have a greeting class that is hovered on, so we go :hover, we want to give it the background color of yellow. So if we save this and refresh it, you can see now when we hover over that greeting class, we see up the top as well, it now has the background color of yellow. There are other types of pseudo classes, but I'll leave you to look them up yourself. While a pseudo class refers to a certain type of action being done to either a class, an ID, or a tag, a pseudo element refers to a specific part of that tag, class, or element. For example, if we go : and then we go first letter and save it and refresh it, you can see now that with every class that it is greeting, its first letter will now have a background color of yellow. The main difference between a pseudo class and a pseudo element is a pseudo class has 1 colon while a pseudo element has 2 colons. You may be thinking, what happens when I specify conflicting CSS? For instance, I link in the style sheet that has color set to red, but my internal CSS specifies that color is set to green. Basically, there is an order of precedence. The browser's default CSS is overridden by linked CSS, which is overridden by internal CSS, which is overridden by inline CSS. So in this video, we had an introduction to CSS. We looked at its core property : value semicolon format, inline versus internal versus external CSS, and how to apply it to a tag, class, ID, pseudo class, and pseudo element.